Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of talk radio. Political opinions have been a staple of radio since the early 1920s. Talk radio as a listener participation format has existed since at least the mid-1940s. WMCA New York's Barry Gray was bored with playing music and put a telephone receiver up to his microphone to talk with band leader Woody Herman. This was soon followed by listener call-ins. In 1948, disc jockey Alan Courtney began a call-in program on WGBS Miami. The Alan Courtney Open Phone Forum was a conservative and anti-communist political forum with coverage area over the southeast United States and Cuba. In the 50s, Joe Pine, John Neville, and Gene Shepard were among the first to explore the medium. In recent years, talk radio has gained popularity with many new formats flourishing, including all sports in 1986 with the birth of WFAN New York. The subject matter for these formats are different, but the structure has remained the same for all these years. You might say, talk radio is a 20th century format. Until now, that is. It's 2014. And radio pioneer and innovator Alex Bennett introduces the Citizen Panel on GabNet, the first revolutionary idea in the format since its inception. The Citizen Panel allows for an open discussion to take place between the host and many listeners all at the same time. Listeners claim that it's addictive, producing stimulating discussions on any topic from politics to movies and entertainment. It's not liberal or conservative. It's open to all opinions and ideas. Log on to gabnet.net to listen and find out how you can participate. Listen to the programs on GabNet and take a step into 21st century talk radio. Spotify has 180 million monthly users and access to 35 million songs and podcasts. Now, all those offerings are going to have to move over and make room for GabNet programming. Yes, at long last, Alex Bennett's Ramble, Damian Chaplin's Exchange, Jack Bishop's The Intersection, and even the franchise MC's Arena and Michael Snyder's weekly movie reviews will be fighting for space on this massive platform. Each day, the programs are updated, so you can hear them on the Spotify app, available for all smartphones and game consoles. Or you can just go to Spotify on the web at spotify.com. So, give us a shot on Spotify. There's a 35 million to 5 chance we'll get people to listen to talk like they've never heard it before. Reasons why you tune into GabNet. Here's reason number 9. Great celebrity guests.
So how many years is this now with Teller?
43, and that's 43 continuous. You can try to say Keith Richards and Mick Jagger go longer, but they take 3, 4, 5 years off. You know, even when they're together, they take the time off. Continuous, you know, no more than 2 weeks working apart, I think.
Wow. And
like being waterboarded for 43 years.
GabNet. Reasons to listen every day. Log on to gabnet.net for more. GabNet. It's talk like you've never heard it before. Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hello, everybody. Oh, wait a minute. I just pulled an earphone out of my ear. Put it back in. Hi, everybody. It's time for the Ramble, and we go until midnight Eastern Time here on the East Coast of the United States of America from New York City, New York, New York. The city's so nice, they named it twice. And also has a zip code, too. 10026, it's mine. Anyway, I couldn't remember that today for some reason when I was doing something. I'm forgetting stuff. Hi, how are you? Geez, nice to have you here. We're going to have a lot of talk later on in the program, but as you know, the last two nights, we've been talking with Jack Garfein in another extended interview that we've done with him, and this one really gets good. This one gets down to his relationship with James Dean, his relationship with Marilyn Monroe, his relationship with a lot of the famous people at the Actors Studio, and I think we should probably get to it right now. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. That's the wrong thing for me to push. Let me go to the right thing to push. We take it right up here. So we're talking with Jack Garfein, and we're talking about his initial time at the Actors Studio. And how long were you at the Actors Studio here in New York?
How, in New York?
Yeah.
I think until the 60s.
Yeah. And so that would comprise how many years from the time you started with them?
So, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you worked your way up from, you originally went in as an actor because that's what the Actors Studio did. And then you
but I couldn't, I had an accent I couldn't do. But what happened was that the Actors Studio was famous for the individual actors in performances.
Yeah.
But there was never a total project.
Yeah.
That was developed at the
And you
Actors
created the first total project.
So I did this play by Calder Willingham, End Is a Man.
Yeah.
And what happened was that by the they kept pressuring me. Are we going to do it? They got frightened because it's never been done before.
Yeah.
And I said, no, you're not going to do it until I feel that it's ready.
Yeah.
So I rehearsed for months.
Yeah.
You know, and had every part was worked on very specifically.
Right.
And they gave up jobs at night. They really devoted their time to it. Well, the time finally came, and I put on the show. It was the first time a complete show was developed at the Actors Studio. So the people who saw it, even Actors Studio people, like I remember Alan Schneider saying, I've directed Broadway shows, Jack, but what you have achieved here is something amazing in terms of the acting, the ensemble work.
Right.
And then what happened is that Ben Gazzara, a lot of the people, felt we should go and find a theater and do it in a small theater. But the point was at that time, you didn't work on a play off Broadway that moved to Broadway. That didn't happen. That didn't happen in 24 years since O'Neill's play, 24 years or 25 years before.
Okay.
But after that, and so when we did that, Ben Gazzara was particularly anxious, kept pushing me to do something, to get people that I knew to put up the money, and you know. And so, and what happened was that Strasberg, who was remarkable about recognizing talent,
right,
and encouraging it, and sometimes discouraging, but remarkable in recognizing talent, but never would do a production unless there were names attached to it. You know, like when he did a Chekhov, he had Kim Stanley, Geraldine Page, but never unknown actors. You know,
right.
So finally, a girl I went to the dramatic workshop with came to see it, and she sort of fell in love with one of the boys, and she said to me that she just got an inheritance from her grandmother, and she would give me the money to do the show. So I went and did production at the Theatre de Lys, and of course...
Was this Broadway?
Off-Broadway.
This was off-Broadway.
Little theater,
yeah,
off-Broadway, and because that they did, and I did it off-Broadway and at this little theater, and of course the critics came, and the reviews were something fantastic. And even one of the greatest critics, Stark Young, said it was superior to any acting done, you know. And Strasberg got so upset that he wrote to him and said, superior than the group theater? And I have the letter. Stark Young replied and said, Yes, the group theater actors were good, but they had one patch too many. I said, these actors didn't, you know.
Yeah.
So it was it. But Strasberg didn't come to the opening because he was terrified that it would wreck. We would talk about the Actors Studio and wreck it because it didn't have any stars in it. Who were these actors, right?
Right.
So he didn't show up. So Ben Gazzara, about 4 or 5 months, no, about a year or two before he died, he was on a program with me, and I said to him, well, I have news for you, Ben. Do you remember the opening? Yeah. Do you remember the telegram from Lee Strasberg? Yeah. I wrote it. I sent it from Lee. I'm so sorry. I knew what that would mean to them, that he didn't show up.
Yeah.
They was unable to do it. And that, you know, and so finally what happened was the reviews were so fantastic that, again, this time we raised the money.
Mm-hmm.
Claire didn't have to put up all the money. And we moved it to Broadway.
Yeah.
It was the first one.
Didn't you eventually make this into a movie?
After
Didn't it become The Strange
What
One?
happened was, yeah, so it opened on Broadway, great reviews, and then 3 or 4 years later, Kazan was wonderful. He really saw the importance of it, and,
Yeah.
and even at the studio, you know, and so anyway, after On the Waterfront,
Yeah.
Spiegel wanted to do another film, and he asked Kazan about this production, which was then running on Broadway, and said, listen, this would be a great film. And Kazan said to him, the best director for this film is Jack Garfien. And Spiegel said, what, the kid?
The kid?
And he said, the kid, he never made a movie before. What are you talking about? I said, I know, he never made a movie. He's the best director for this film. And so, and he said, and I'll be there if you need any help, you know.
Yeah.
And so Spiegel decided to go along, and Kazan got this great cameraman to agree to film it, you know. And
the film became The Strange One, right?
Film became again. Willingham later was so upset because what happened was Spiegel sent out a questionnaire to entire staff of Columbia Pictures. What's the best title for this film? And they wrote down what the majority said, The Strange One.
Yeah.
You know, and Willingham said, if I had known that, I never would have let him do the film, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then there was the problem with censorship, you know, because to me, I didn't think of the guy as, you know, doing a film about a gay person, because this was a real relationship. In the sense, he admired the character of Gazzara,
Mm-hmm.
you know, really a real caring love for him,
right?
You know, and I wasn't going to go for the cliche, you know, about the feminine. If he's effeminate, he's going to behave a certain way, you know, and so he decided. Spiegel decided to do the film, but James Dean got in touch with Spiegel and said, listen, he was already a star then.
Right.
I want to make that film. I'll be better than Bennett Gazzara. And Spiegel said to me, hey, Dean would like to do the movie. I said, I'm crazy about Dean. We're close friends. He's not right for that film like Bennett Gazzara is, right?
Right.
And so I said, and anyway, so then it opened.
And at that point, if I'm not mistaken, you say Dean was already a kind of a major star.
Yeah.
And so that would have been something to have him be in the film. It would have drawn a lot of attention to the film.
He was. Spiegel thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Because most of the producers only think of money and names, not about talent. Very rarely about talent.
How did Dean feel about you rejecting him for the part? How did James Dean feel about you rejecting him?
No, he knew I rejected him before.
Oh.
We were very close friends.
So you could reject him and get away with it.
Yeah.
What kind of person was what kind of person was he? Because all we have today is that iconic look of James Dean in our minds, but there was a real person there that you had to work with. How was that?
Yeah, there was a real person. One incident, somebody in the actor studio said that as far as improvisation goes, Jack Garfien is the best.
Yeah.
Nobody can do improvisations the way he does them and uses them. So after the session, he said this in front of Strasbourg, we went out. This is before he became a star,
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, well, Jack, that was really great. But listen, it's something I have to tell you, I have to share with you, which is the kind of death I have to face about my father. But he got very upset. I said, oh, come on, Jimmy, it happens. Look what happened to me, And then I put my arm around him and walked him to the hotel room. And he said, thanks, Jack. And then he looked at me and said, how was that for an improvisation? And ran upstairs. Yeah. And I ran after him. And he locked the door so I couldn't.
Now, how far into from the production of the Willingham play and the production of the movie was about 4 years, you say, the time between the two?
No, about 3 years.
About 3 years. So after 3 years, you were directing Hollywood films now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then.
And how old were you then? Probably 24 or something like that?
What? Yeah. I was 25.
Probably the youngest director in Hollywood.
Yeah. But also, in between, I met Carol.
That would be your wife. And we should mention that it was Carol Baker.
Yeah.
And Carol Baker was, Jack, and I got to say, you must have been quite a winner because she had the reputation because of Baby Doll of being like a major sex symbol in America because everybody remembers her lying in that baby crib.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I had a difficult time because she was married when she was 19 or 20 to a guy who was actually a gangster. Yeah. And she was a dancer in a club, a famous club. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he met her there. And then when I told you about, we went to this photographer's place to listen to the stereo and the hi-fi.
Right.
A guy called Strasbourg, not related to the other guy, but he was a friend. He knew them. And he said, Jack, I know a guy, and he's married to this young girl who, is interested in acting, and I'd love to help out if I could arrange a meeting between the two of you, Mm-hmm. And I said, sure, why not? But I said, it has to be work. I didn't want any.
Yeah.
So I said, tell her she can do a scene for me, and where she will do it, and I'll go and watch it. So he calls me a week later. She's got a scene, and in this place, you'd like to see it, she will show it to you. So I went there, and she did from some very conventional movie a scene, but I felt, not bad, even though the material wasn't too hot.
Right.
I said, and I said to her, and I suggested that she study with Strasbourg, okay? Mm-hmm. So she then called me the next time and wanted to have lunch with me, and I said, okay. So we met in the Russian tea room, and she told me that she's unhappy with her husband, that they're probably heading for a divorce, but so she might not be around. She might have to go to Mexico. And I said, okay, but the next thing, I think it's about a couple of months later, she called me. She said, well, I'm going to Mexico. I'm divorcing my husband. So I said, well, I hope all goes well. I was interested more in the Strasbourg class, very exciting, it's wonderful, you know. And then she came back, and I was with Peter Larkin at a cafe in the village. She called me, she said, well, I'm divorced, I'm alone now. I said, well, you want to have a drink with us? So she came down, we had a drink.
Yeah.
And then I started to go out with her and started to feel that she had real potential, you know. And the husband arranged for me to be beaten up, and I went to the police and detectives, and then they broke into my apartment, you know, and she tried to talk to him. She said, look, we're divorced, what do you want, you know, but he had a lot of power.
Yeah.
The police, when I went and reported to the police, the guy said to me, well, why do you fuck around with someone else's wife? How the hell did he know that? So I must have been told.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so what happened was that Kazan heard about it, got terribly concerned, and called me in and said, listen, some of the guys that are protecting me and on the waterfront,
Mm-hmm.
I'll let them protect you, Jack. I said, come on. I faced bigger and stronger guys than that. I'm going to get worried about this. And when he heard later that I was beaten up on the street, he insisted on having someone protect me. And I said, come on. Who are these guys next to the guys who tried to do what they did to me? So you know what he did? Because everybody thinks badly of him in many ways.
Yeah.
He called the district attorney and told him the story. And the district attorney said, listen, I have to have an incident that's to occur. I can't just go to a guy, arrest him or do something. And Kazan supposedly said to him, well, don't do anything. You'll have to face, when this kid gets beaten up on the street after the concentration camps, your career is done, my friend. And so he said, he arranged, the district attorney arranged to have a hearing, but he staged it with camera people, with so-called news people there,
Mm-hmm.
just to ask questions. Well, her ex got so terrified that they will get at real things with him, you know.
Yeah.
He just wanted to know about questions. That after that, he left me alone. I was okay, all right?
Wow.
And when I saw Kazan, I said, gee, God, you really helped me. He said, yeah, but I feel badly for you. Why? What's wrong? This story is such a cliche, you won't be able to use it.
So she became your wife.
Yeah.
But I want to backtrack a little bit because you talk about your
the
affection. What? I want to backtrack just a little bit.
No, but let me just say one thing. So at one point, Kazan asked me, I think was I married? If I wasn't married, it was just before we got married. Maybe I was married. Coming out of the actor's studio, he said, he said, what do you think about your wife? What kind of actress do you think she is? I said, I hope you don't use her because I want to use her. He said, that's good enough for me, Jack. It's a great recommendation. And so he arranged for her to read Baby Doll at Tennessee Williams' apartment with Carl Malden and Eli Wallach.
How did you feel that at that moment, Carol Baker was the sexual icon of the moment because of that poster, just on the poster for the movie? And if nobody's seen the poster for the movie, I'm sure you can go online and see it. How did you feel? You were her husband, and you're the guy who's got her.
Well, I was ambitious, and I thought, my plan was, when I saw that happening, I thought, okay, I deserve it, because I saw this, recommended her, the studio, and I said, I deserve it, so I can do what I've always wanted to do. With her getting attention, that's how selfish that was. I said, I can form my company, movie company, have the money to do the films I want to do.
I want you to tell a story to the audience because you were talking about James Dean, being very close with James Dean, and you were in Hollywood the day he died, and you have memories of that, of finding out about it. You said you saw him earlier in the day, first of all, with his car. I was
the last person to see him.
He was in his car taking off.
No, even before. We were so close.
Yeah.
We were so close because we were going to do a Russian play on Broadway. A play by, I can't, again.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cheryl Crawford was going to produce it.
Yeah.
And everything was set up, and I went to Hollywood. It was the last day of shooting of Giant. And I went to his dressing room to tell him about the dates and what's happening. And the Warner Brothers man came in and did his, clerical questions. Where is this? Where is that? And I saw Dean getting like that. So when he left, I said, Jimmy, don't let people get upset. What are the clerical? That's their stuff. Yeah, but, they treat me like a star, like an actor, but then they treat me like I'm occupying a space or something.
Yeah.
He was very upset. So I said, okay, Jimmy, so we meet in New York with Cheryl, and we try to work out a date for the production. He said, I'm all excited about it, Jack. So what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm just going to go to the races. I said, Jimmy, please, what are you going to the races for? We have something planned we're going to do. I don't want any problems for you to get into or anything like that. Jack, I'm not racing. I'm just going to go to the races, okay? I promise you, I'm not going to race, okay? So I'm just going to do that. And I said, okay, so you're just going to go to the races? Yeah. Okay, so I left, we kissed, and then I'm at the Chateau Marmont, and it's late afternoon, early afternoon, excuse me, or maybe morning.
Yeah.
And as I go out of Chateau Marmont, I see a whole crowd of people standing around, so I go to look, and I look, what's going on? Oh, Jimmy Dean is in there. This is his car, and it's a racing car. I said, Jimmy Dean? Yeah. So I stopped by the car. He came out. It was wonderful. He saw me. He turned around, started to walk the other way. I said, come on. What's going on here? Jack, I'm not going to race. Well, what's the car? I like to ride in a fast car, but I'm just going to go to watch the race, and then I'll meet you in New York, right? So we shook hands. He got in the car. He left, and then I went home. And in the evening, or afternoon, I think, late afternoon, I went to watch the rushes on Giant. So we were sitting there watching the rushes when the door opens in the screening room, and Elizabeth Taylor was just sitting watching the rushes, suddenly goes, oh my God! I said, why is she reacting that way? She sensed something from the guy who opened the door. And the guy opened the door and she said, sorry, but Jimmy was just killed in a car accident.
Wow. You must have been devastated.
What?
You must have been devastated.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just absolutely unbelievable.
How do you think his career would have gone?
What?
How do you think his career would have gone had he lived?
Oh, I think it would have gone tremendously because he really wanted it.
Yeah.
Like the Russian play he was going to do with me. He wasn't just going to be a Hollywood star, And he read a lot. Also, Kazan hurt him too, which I was upset with Kazan about it.
Yeah.
Because what happened was, whenever Jimmy had his motorbike, and whenever he saw Kazan, hey, and Kazan would get on the back of the motorbike, and Jimmy would ride him. The same way Jack Warner called Kazan and said, "Your actor won't get off the set. We have to close the studio, but he won't leave. So please get him out." And Kazan knew Dean, and he said, "Okay, don't worry, I'm going, and I'll stay with him there." Okay.
Yeah.
So Dean wanted to stay to feel at home, to sense that this was his place, and Kazan had the sense that he wanted to do that, so he went and stayed with him. And so what happened after the movie, and Dean confided in me, what happened was that he was on a motorbike and Kazan was at the studio. And he said, "Okay, Gatch, come on, get on the back." Kazan walked up to him and said, "Jimmy, the movie's over. I can't do that. I have my work to do."
Wow. Let me ask you this, and we'll kind of finish with this. When did you meet Marilyn Monroe for the first time? She showed up at the Actors Studio?
We just try to be specific. She came to a session of the Actors Studio.
Yeah.
And I didn't even go to introduce myself to her. And that weekend,
she was already a star at the time, but she wanted to become a better actress.
Oh no, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Big star. And so what happened was that weekend she was invited to Strasbourg's Fire Island house. Eli Wallach was, and so was I. And that's when I met her and talked about it. It's a very funny story. So we were having lunch, and Eli was there, and Annie Jackson, his wife, and Marilyn turned to Eli, and she said, "You know, Eli, what's so wonderful about you? I feel like I have a brother." And Eli said, "Well, Marilyn, I hate to disappoint you, but I don't feel like I have a sister. You're my sister." Right? And I was, how old was I? I was, I think, 26 or 27.
You're just a punk.
And so I start talking about Stanislavski and Vakhtangov and all that. And then after dinner, we're in the living room, and I hear Marilyn saying, Jack, can you come in for a minute?" Sure. I walk in. She's in bed under a sheet. And she says, "So, what was that Russian guy's name?" "I don't mean Stanislavski, the other guy." "Vakhtangov." "Oh, good. Tell me about him." And she's naked under the sheet.
And you got to know her quite well.
What?
You got to know her quite well.
She knew me better than I knew myself. Like, after that weekend, we drove back in a car. A driver, we were in the back. And she turned to me and she said, "I know why you married that woman. She didn't like Carol, you know."
Yeah.
"I know why you married that woman." "Why, Marilyn?" "Because, Jack, your mother wasn't there to say, no, no, no."
You liked Marilyn a lot,
What?
right? You liked Marilyn a
Very
lot.
much. I felt I had a lot in common in terms of how people treated us, you know.
In what way? You say you have a lot in common. You had a lot in common because of the way they treated you. In what way?
Well, people were jealous.
Yeah.
And so they would try to destroy things and humiliate you, and, you know, and didn't appreciate things that you felt you were doing out of your love for things, but because you were just a certain... In those days, the Kennedys, see? In those days, you married a woman who never had sex, was a virgin. You wouldn't marry,
right?
You know, and here was a girl who they felt fucked everybody around the block probably, so they felt they could get it too.
Yeah.
You know, but nothing to do with any humanity or with any concern. So
how did you feel when you heard she died?
What?
How did you feel when you heard that she had died?
Well, I was very upset. Like even with Kazan, there was a party at the Strasbergs, and I was standing with Patty Chayefsky, and she looked so amazing, Merrill, that Patty kept looking, and I looked. It was great. Kazan noticed our look. He came over and he said, "You want to have that? You can have it." One time I wanted to hit him.
Yeah. You were protective of her.
I wasn't protecting, but I felt she was a human being who did certain things out of a real love or care, and people thought she was just a whore. You know?
Well, why don't we stop there and maybe pick this up some other time, because I know that you're tired, and this is Thanksgiving we're doing this on, so we got to go have ourselves some turkey.
Okay, great.
And Jack Garfien is my friend, and that is one of my proudest achievements in life, believe me, Jack.
And Alex is my friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Jack Garfien, ladies and gentlemen.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GABNET, the Great American Broadcast Network.
And that is our final interview with Jack Garfien. And I just found it fascinating. I just found this last one fascinating. This whole interview, the whole complete interview, is available on our Roku channels, on GABNET TV and the GABNET Roku channel. If you want to find it in its full form, you can find it there. I was going to put it up on our on-demand, the audio video of this, but I don't know if I'm going to or not. I haven't decided yet. I kind of have the feeling that if you didn't catch it here now and you didn't pay attention to it, then why should I, why should I reward you by making it that easy for you to find it elsewhere? Of course, you'll be able to find it tonight, the last one, after the show, when we post the whole show. Whether we're going to post that whole interview on the GABNET side, I don't know. It is and has been actually for the last about 2 weeks, has been the complete interview on the GABNET Roku channel and GABNET TV Roku channel. And if you don't have Roku, well, you can buy one for like, what are they costing now? Something like $50 or something. And you not only get that, but all the other crap that goes with getting a Roku. Okay. Let me open up the Skype lines here, and I hope you found that interesting, because I think it was fascinating myself. Just the stories about James Dean and the stories about Marilyn, and it was what a terrific life this guy has led. Now those are the two names instantly. James Dean and Marilyn Monroe. But the other names he was mentioning there were, if you're anybody who was into the theater, it was just an amazing group of people. I mean, this throws off the name Patty Chayefsky, for instance, who came to write the movie Network and wrote Marty as a Broadway show, and then, of course, it was made into a movie that won an Academy Award. It talks about Elia Kazan, Strasberg. These are people who were the icons of American theater at the time. And Jack was with them in the middle of all of that as a peer, and considered to be one of the great Broadway directors. He went on to make 2 movies, The Strange One, and I'm trying to remember what the other title of the other one was right now. And it's the one he likes to be remembered for. I'll remember it later. It's just I'm still loopy. And he made 2 movies in Hollywood. But it didn't. I want to get into that if we ever get to sit him down for another interview. You know, this is a touch and go thing. He's a really old guy. He's fragile. He gets worn out easily now, and I would love to get him back in here to talk about his whole relationship with Columbia Pictures and why his films had problems at Columbia Pictures. And but maybe we can get him at another time on that. But you know, anyway, guess who's here? That's Phil. He's here tonight.
Yay.
Yeah.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Yeah. Yeah. Guess who's coming to dinner? Yep. How you doing, Phil?
Oh, good. You know, I listened to the interview. It's very good. I'm going to listen to them in their entirety, though. You know, without you know, the days apart.
Yeah, well, you can go on to Roku and do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to post them on Gabnet itself on the site, but
why don't you put them in the Gabnet store and you know, let people send a contribution?
Oh, yeah, right, the Gabnet store, that famous Gabnet store. Yeah. Right. I don't, the one that doesn't exist, folks. But
yeah. Yeah, it's where you get your Gabnet mugs, Gabnet T-shirts, Gabnet hats.
I have to tell you, these interviews that I've done with Jack have been some of the most difficult interviews I've done, because it's hard when somebody gets as old as Jack is getting.
Yeah.
They kind of have, when you ask them a question, they have their own agenda in answering it rather than answering your question directly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, do you think he has an agenda?
Well, no, it isn't a question.
It didn't come across that way.
No. I'm not talking about agenda as a political thing or anything else. What I'm saying is that, how can I put it best?
He has his own perspective.
Well, no, it's not a perspective. It's a matter of I ask a question and then he decides he's going to answer it by going back 5 steps. You know, I asked him a question about, what happened when you first got here in America? Well, let me first tell you about Europe. You know, rather than going direct. In other words,
he wasn't answering the question the way you wanted him to answer.
It was very hard for me to structure the interview in a logistical sense. Also, I couldn't, you know, there were a whole bunch of problems. I mean, he's hard of hearing. You could hear the feedback from his
hearing aid. Do you think that because he was a director that he would? It's like trying to direct the director?
Oh, well, he is currently, they're making a documentary on him. French film crew is making a documentary on him. Been doing it for the last couple of years. And truly an amazing story. Most of it is about, I think, about the concentration camps, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, they've been making this thing, and they've had to deal with him, you know, because he's trying to direct it.
Right.
You know.
Well, you know, he said something, not in this last half hour, but in a previous one. He says, you got a lot more out of me than others have. Yeah. You remember that?
Yeah, I think he said it in one of these interviews here. I don't know. Maybe it was the last one.
No. It was in one of the 3. I think it was the second of these interviews.
Yeah. You know, and that made me happy to know. But I was about ready to say, what is it exactly I got out of you? You know, because
maybe he was more forthcoming with certain things than he was with others.
As I'm saying, the biggest problem that you have that I had in that interview was just, you know, if I sit down, I were to interview you, I'd ask you a question, you'd answer it, I'd take you along a natural path. Let's say we were deconstructing your life. I would take you from, where were you born? Okay, then what did you do? Then what happened after that? You know, and we would go in a logical path. With him, he kind of goes back this way, and then he goes this way, and he goes that way. You know. Did
you have a thing to follow, sort of an outline with him, or it was free flow?
No, I mean, I told him that the first set of interviews we did were all about his time in the concentration camps and what that was all about and what it was like. And I'm sure in many ways to most of our audience, those were the most fascinating of the interviews, okay? This was about I told him, we're going to deal with your time in New York and directing and going out to Hollywood and the people you knew and so on. And I definitely wanted to get in the stories about James Dean and Marilyn, so I kind of shoehorned them in there. You know, they weren't put in the logical place that they happened in chronological order. Okay, but we did it, you know, and I'm glad I managed to in some way document his life. But I'm sure if somebody tries to interview me at that age, it's going to be the same way. It already is with me.
Did you ask him that if he was conducting the interview, what would he ask, or how would he set it up?
No.
Okay.
How can I put this? I wouldn't ask that question because I honestly believe it would be too complicated a question. You know what I'm saying? Because at times when I would ask him a question, did you notice he would kind of go like, well, what do you mean by that? You know, and it was a simple enough question. I had to keep it in a very simple way. Hi, Jason. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's only Thursday. You usually call on Fridays.
Well, that's because recreational marijuana in Michigan is now legal, so he's celebrating all week.
Yeah. It is, isn't it? It's the first Midwest state to do that.
Yeah.
However,
today's the first day that it's legal.
That it's legal, but it will be a year, they say, before it will be sold.
Yeah, you know, I was watching the news and they were saying, so if you have a friend who has a medical marijuana card, they got to gift it to you.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that the idea of the commercial stuff going on sale is going to take about a year for them to get that into play. Yeah.
Jason, could your job be in jeopardy if you smoke pot?
Yeah. You know, if I were to smoke and get tested and show up positive for it, it's a federal offense. It's federally, it's illegal.
Well, here's the problem, though. Here's the problem. You shouldn't, okay? But like, for instance, I say to people, well, if somebody's smoking pot on the job, they probably should get fired, just like I would. They shouldn't be drinking on the job, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But the trouble with marijuana is the only way they can test for marijuana is to see if it's in your bloodstream.
Or in your hair.
Whatever they do, it takes 3 weeks for marijuana to leave your system, whereas with alcohol, you can be sober in a couple of hours, and most of it will have left your bloodstream.
Why did I think the hair sample, it stayed in for 3 months?
Well,
the hair sample stays in until you cut your hair.
Oh, really? Yeah, is that how it works?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't like the testing for marijuana only because it doesn't give you an indication of whether that person is high now.
They have been trying out in one of the counties next to me. It's a saliva test. So if there's enough THC in your saliva, that means you just smoked it within the last couple of hours.
Okay, that's fair. So, I mean...
But at the same time, you've even talked about, what was it, the Cherokee test or the Cherokee experiments or whatever it was called.
That woman running for president?
No, in Portland, Oregon, or in Oregon. Oh. They did some Oregon tests. These were many years ago, in which they tested experienced marijuana users versus non-experienced marijuana users, and then put them behind the wheel of a car. And they found that people who were experienced with marijuana could compensate for the drug not 60%, not 70%, but 100%. In other words, they could get behind the wheel of a car and drive it accurately. They said people who had never smoked it before, on the other hand, were a different story.
And I'll admit, when I was younger, I indulged. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I do
younger
now or not. Yeah. But I could straight up, I could smoke, give it a few minutes, and then go out and drive, and I was fine. I felt like I was more comfortable behind the wheel because I was more relaxed. I paid more attention, but I know there was a point of time where I stopped, And then I started back up again, and I'm afraid to get behind the wheel. It'd just be like, no, man, I got to wait till this is like half worn off before I could get behind the wheel.
I think I had mentioned before that I had one toke over at a friend's house, and 2.5, 3 hours later, I drove in my car, and I shouldn't have driven.
Well, the first time I ever smoked pot, I was then driving home. And I shouldn't have done that either. If you're an inexperienced user, if you've not used pot, and you don't know what to expect, actually, it's a very hard thing to compensate for. This is a drug that they've shown through the tests in Oregon, at least, that you can compensate for. If you're experienced, you can compensate 100% for the effects of the drug if you have to do a task, like driving, like operating power tools, whatever it takes. You don't want to. My feeling is when I got high, even when I was experienced, I didn't want to go driving. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to just lie back and enjoy it,
Yeah.
So why complicate it with some kind of task, Hello, Jeff. Hi. Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff. I had hemp today. I had a hemp-infused vodka in my Bloody Mary at lunch.
Could you even taste anything, or you just paid for it?
I just paid for it. It was tasty. I mean, they had all sorts of other stuff in the Bloody Mary.
I saw at Costco. It was called Hearts of Hemp.
Yeah.
They're like the inner parts of hemp seeds or something that you're supposed to use as seasoning. And it was a big, huge bag of it at Costco. It was little
some awkward. We don't have hemp yet at our Costco. Yet.
Well, it's coming, I guess.
You look around; it's probably there because this was before today. It became legal. It was like last week I saw it there.
It may be that the hemp, you can.
There's no THC in it.
Yeah, you can make it so your hemp doesn't have any THC in it. Correct. So that's probably
and this vodka didn't have any THC. The waiter told me that. I said, he said it was called the Mary Jane. I said, okay, I'll have one of those.
So, why even infuse it with hemp if it doesn't do anything?
There may be a taste, but I didn't know what to look for as far as the taste. So, it tasted good. That's all I knew.
I don't know that.
You probably have to have a very mature palate in order to be able to taste it too.
I didn't have any reference to to put across it to know what it was or what it wasn't. But the guy had it was actually dinner, and we went to this oyster bar. And buck an oyster, downed 20 oysters between the two of us. But he was.
So was it $20?
Well, it was actually $70 by the time we got done with the chicken wings and
really not a buck oyster.
Well, no, all the other stuff and the drinks. But he was talking about a place in New York, Alex, that was near your old apartment called the Free School. Are you familiar with that? He said it was, a lot. Paul Krasner and
Paul Krasner,
Krasner, and a bunch of things, and he was on 6th. It was on 14th at 6th.
14th at 6th. Well, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but that was
in the 60s.
Back in the 60s. Yeah, the Free School.
Right.
It was actually on this. It was right next door to my apartment house on the I think the second floor, maybe the third floor. And the Living Theater used to do some stuff there and so on. But I don't know why but I do remember the name now, the Free School. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my friend was involved with that and all of those guys. And he said that Abby Hoffman and a number of those other people were all part of that.
Yeah, and I used to go there with them. So.
He said he saw you there.
I don't know why. I don't know why I vaguely remember it, because you would think it would be something that would be in my mind. But now that you mentioned 6th and 14th, and now I remember it was either on the second or third floor.
Well, because I said to him, I said, oh, well, I knew somebody that lived on 14th, and He said, who? And I told him, and he says, well, you used to go there.
Yeah, yeah.
He met you there.
He's right. I remember being there. I can almost remember what it looked like now that you mention it.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
If somebody had mentioned to me, do you know what the free school is? I'd go, no. It's one of those things that you don't remember.
Isn't that
longer.
before kindergarten?
It's nothing's free.
And I don't think it was much of a school either, but I do.
No, it had to do with a bunch of revolutionaries, I guess.
Well, yeah, it was revolutionary theater. I mean, the Living Theater with Judith Malina and Julian Beck took place there. Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, my sister used to, when she went to medical school, well, she was a nurse on 14th and 5th. I think she went to school there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there was a school there anymore, but I remember going there quite often.
Well,
Sixth also. I can't remember why.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it was actually a school.
Yeah, well, that's what they called it, I think.
Yeah. I vaguely remember the name. I do remember the space, however. And I do know what he's talking about. And yes, I'm sure he saw me there.
Yeah, he did. He said it.
We used to go.
And I didn't volunteer that anything. He just said, he says, who lived on 14th? I said, Alex Bennett. Said, he knows you. He's one of your Facebook friends. And
as a matter of fact, I vaguely remember one of the events I talk about in my life was the night that I met up with John and Yoko. Mm-hmm. And I had been kind of mad at John and Yoko because they had promised some money to the Living Theater, which was this theater group I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. And they said they were going to give them some money to help them out.
Yeah.
And I was told by one of their members that they never came through. And I had been then putting them down for that on the air. And so they came over to me at this party. And if I remember correctly, I mean, it's very vague in my mind, but I believe it was at the free school. It was
really?
where the gathering was. And they came over to me and they said, Alex, we hear that you blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah. I said, you guys got a lot of money. I said, you don't have to give any of it to anybody. I said, and I'm never going to hold that against you. I said, but if you promise it, people are then counting on it, and you'd better come through. And the next day, they wrote out a check and sent it to the Living Theater to help them out. I said, don't tell people you're going to give them money if you don't want to give them the money,
Yeah.
But I remember my immediate thought the minute that John and Yoko walked away. I looked over at my then wife, who I think, or girlfriend, maybe it was my wife, maybe it was Ronnie, for all I remember, and looked at them and said, gee, I just had my ass kissed by a beetle.
Very cool.
Because they came over to me and they were very apologetic. And why are you mad at us? And we think the world of you. And of course, Yoko was the one taking charge of the discussion because she took charge of everything.
She took charge of the money. She's very smart.
Very smart woman. Very bright. I was always very pissed when people would say nasty things about Yoko, because I had to always tell people, hey, she's very bright, she's very smart, and she's very talented. She was a very talented artist. Her art career was ruined by marrying John Lennon. Yeah.
Well, she was very early on in the Brooklyn remodeling renaissance. Bless you. Taking those buildings and converting them, and she also restored a number of places, including in Matthews, Virginia, a lighthouse, the oldest lighthouse on the East Coast, and then she donated it to an orphanage. She's very generous.
Well, she's also very good with money.
Yes.
Her father was a banker in Japan, and so she learned a lot about banking, and so she knew a lot about handling money as well. And so, but her talent, I mean, as an artist, I thought she was one of the, if you want to talk about avant-garde artists of the time, I think she was one of the best that there was. She was terrific. I even created an artwork with her once. I mean, but I found her just prolifically interesting. And then she went and started doing all that singing stuff where she would shriek and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And people would call me up and put it down. And I used to say, I said, you mark my words, what she's doing or attempting to do right now with music, 10 years from now, everybody will be doing.
And you're right.
And John Lennon said, literally quoted me years later saying that Alex Bennett said that she would, someday everybody would be doing what she was doing. Then there were people like Lena Levitch and so on who did exactly that, who had hit records. You know?
What about what her kid did?
Well, her kid is artistic too. He did a series of bronze that my uncle worked with him on.
Did he have an album?
No, you're thinking of Julian Lennon.
Yeah.
Julian Lennon is not by Yoko. Sean Lennon is their son by the two of them.
Which one did the bronze exhibits?
It could have been Sean.
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah.
Okay. Because also Mitchie, my uncle, did a lot of work with John Lennon when he was alive on his Bag One series and bronze. And he also worked with Keith Haring.
My friend Al Goldstein.
Yeah.
What happened was John Lennon came out with this Bag One art thing where there were like something like 12 lithographs. And you bought them and they came in this burlap bag. Okay?
Hey, for the younger people, what's a lithograph?
Well, no.
That's a classic way of printing.
This isn't really for young people because they still do lithographs to this day. I mean, lithographs are, it's a limited form of printing in which you don't do a huge number, you know.
Is that what is it? Certain media?
It's done in reverse, and you make a block, and
I don't know. That I don't think is what lithographs are.
Yeah, and then you press it.
This is a form of printing. It's a form of actual.
So
printing.
is
I think
taking the block,
I'm
inking it, and then
you may be right, Phil. Maybe somebody can call us up or tell us what lithograph is exactly. But anyway. Al Goldstein bought one of the bags, and they were like $1,200. Okay? And I always used to say to him, why the fuck did you buy that? You know, come on. And there was artwork by John and Yoko. All right? 5 years later, that whole bag was worth close to $50,000. Okay? And now in this today, it's worth a hell of a lot more. What you got looked up lithograph on your little phone?
Of course, yeah. Lithography is a method of printing originally based on oil and water. The printing from stone or metal plate with a smooth surface. It was invented in 1796. German author and actor, can't pronounce it, as a cheap method of publishing theatrical works.
Hans Gustav Litho.
I told you for the younger people. Could you explain it, please?
But wait a minute, I got a better.
It's a plate.
I got a better answer for you. Echo, what's a lithograph?
You've got that in the room.
It is usually defined as a print produced by lithography, or alternatively, duplicator that prints by lithography. A flat surface of stone or metal is treated to absorb a repel ink in the desired pattern. As a verb, lithograph can mean make by lithography.
Okay,
so is that almost basically a stamp?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And it's usually a limited number. And they'll usually be numbered like, you know, if they made 100 of them, it'll be like 25/100, you know. And
makes sense.
Yeah, because if they make them limited, they're worth more. You know, but they're not worth.
Also, the plates can only produce so many until it loses its crispness.
I guess.
Yeah, I think it schmooses out a little bit.
It's
thick in certain spots and thin in the other, and it's not as the printing is not as
it's not sharp
quality. Not sharp anymore.
Yeah. But the other thing is that, of course, there is silkscreen, which...
Yeah, but that's for photography with ink, and you lay the silkscreen on some item, and then you schmooze the each color. Yeah. You wave it across the screen.
Right. Well, what happened was Andy Warhol used to do silk screens. Mm-hmm. And a lot of his famous ones, like the electric chair and things like that, are really got a lot of money. Well, I had this friend who took over the space that was called the Factory, where Andy Warhol did a lot of this. And he had these silk screens, but what he did is after he made, say, the 25th one or whatever, he would then take a knife and slash through the silk screen, ruining the art. So no more could be made. My friend found that if he tried to sell the silk screens, he could get a good price for them, even if they were slashed. So there's your art world for you. Yeah.
You know, you remember just recently there was a guy that sold a piece of art that was like $4 million. It went for at auction, and once the gavel went down and it was sold.
No. You know who that was? That was what's his name? That was. It
was recent.
No. Now my mind is such a blank today. God,
I can't think of the name too, but yeah, it was just a couple of months, wasn't it?
Yeah, last couple of months.
It's the guy who does stuff on walls and stuff.
You mean a graffiti artist?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This looked like a serious piece of art.
Yeah, well, he
did somebody just say something wasn't a folk or something like that?
No. What's come on? What is wrong with me? I know his name like I know
who can remember that kind of shit?
No, I mean, I've been taking this gabapentin and he's been making me just lose all sense of memory.
So what happened was in the frame was a shredder. And as soon as it was sold,
the thing
it went down through the shredder, and they said it was worth more because of that. It's just, it's amazing.
Something EY. Oh God.
SD?
No. And Tony's calling. Tony won't have the answer. That's for damn sure. Oh God. What's his name? He did artworks here in New York City where stuff would show up on pavements and on the sides of walls.
Oh, Banks?
Oh, Banksy. Banks. He came up with it.
Yes, that's it. Banksy. Here, Tony knew.
Yeah. No, that was Banksy.
I just found it, too.
Yeah, it was a Banksy.
There's a girl with red balloon. Banksy shredded poster.
Yeah. And
the person, Banksy.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. And the question is, how much is that shredded work worth?
Well, it was worth $4 million before it shredded.
Well, is it still worth something? Because
they said it's worth more.
Of the art.
Is that not the completed work of art?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You came up
the
with
fact that it shredded.
Tony, when I saw you were ringing, I said Tony won't have the answer, and you had the answer.
I love when you were talking about that artwork. I love that stuff. I like reading on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Son of a
Al
bitch.
Goldstein, that was a great buy he had, Alex.
Oh, yeah, of course. No shit.
Holy moly.
But I derided him for it when he bought it. I said,
yeah, I heard you say
$1,200
that.
for this.
I love any type of original type stuff like that.
Hey, see, it's because of Tony now I know what piles are.
As long as you don't get them.
I had to ask my parents because, I just figure it's an older person thing. My parents are the same age as you, Phil. And my mom had no idea, and my dad did. So I thought it was funny.
It's yeah. So whatever.
Well, I missed last night's show, but we had our annual photography banquet, and at that banquet they took all the winners from the last 11 months, and they had another judging, and a piece that I submitted, and I won because I was basic. It turned out that it was best of show, first place, best of show for everybody the whole year. So I beat those old people again.
Yeah, but you're taking advantage of them.
No, some of these guys are unbelievable. They fly all over the world, and they hire photographers to show them the best places to take the shot. And some of them have more money than God. And I went with John Parolis to a MMA match, and he gave me access, and that was the one. The bloody MMA match thing was the one that won.
How many people are in your club?
Congratulations.
There was 100 there last night. And but there's probably 180 that belong, and then there's 14 Northern California clubs which we are a part of, and so if we win at this one, then they send them to that to compete with those. And I've done okay. I've had a couple of firsts, a couple of fifths, but a few.
Yeah. Sounds boring to me. Anyway.
Everything sounds boring to you, unless it's about you.
You're fucking beating up on old people. I don't approve of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, what are they, like 5 years older than he is?
No. Some of these people are in their 90s. There's a woman that sat at my table. She's 95, and she's amazing. And she gets out there. She refuses to do. She does. If there's a ladder you got to climb up, she'll climb up. We were on a ship, a Coast Guard ship, during the Fleet Week, and she was on that same ship. And there's a ladder. I almost didn't climb up, but she climbed up at 95. Unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah.
So bitch. Well, that's good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You always ask me about television shows.
Yes. What do you got from?
To begin with, we just got through binge watching Mrs. Maisel, the second season.
It's out already. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. I knew it was coming out on the 5th.
We wondered as we were watching it whether it was good as the last year, and then by the time it finishes up, we went, yeah, it's as good as the last year.
And Tony Shalhoub's in it too.
I mean, as opposed to 8 episodes, where's the audience going tonight? Fuck all of you. It's down to like 20 people or something. What's that all about?
Well, you mean 20 watchers?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Who cares? Who gives a shit?
Oh man.
Anyway,
I download you on Apple, iTunes, so you can't see me when I'm watching or listening, and so there's more people out there listening than you think.
Anyway, let me. Maisel is, I think, this year just about as good as last year. But it takes a while. It doesn't. They go to Paris, and the second episode's very nice, and then it kind of wanders around a little bit. Then they go to the Catskills, and you don't know what's going to happen there. But eventually, that kind of starts working, and then it starts getting more and more and more. And finally, at the end, it's really good. It's really good, and so I would suggest The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel for another go around. 10 episodes this time as opposed to 8. And a show that we binge watched that everybody told me, you got to watch this show. You got to watch this show. And when people keep saying you got to watch this show, I'm always going, fuck it. Nobody's going to tell me what to watch. But we finally got around to watching Killing Eve. Has anybody seen Killing Eve?
I didn't see that.
Is that a Netflix?
No,
Please
no.
Elaborate.
No, it's USA.
What's it about?
BBC America.
Oh yeah.
And if you
so it's Hulu. You got to go Hulu, right?
Hulu. It is on Hulu, as a matter of fact. I pay for Hulu with no commercials, so we could watch it without commercials. It is nothing short of incredible. It is just everybody that told me you should watch this were absolutely right. It's terrific.
Is it in a literal sense about Eve as in Adam and Eve, or is it a metaphorical reference?
No, it's about a woman who works for the MI5 named Eve, and this absolutely crazed killer for this group of people. She's a woman, and she is just loony. I mean, it's so well played that it's just incredible. And it's about the MI5 woman trying to find this assassin, and the assassin finding out who she is and trying to find her, and it is.
Now, MI5 is UK's version of the FBI.
More like the CIA.
More CIA.
Or is that MI6? That's their version of the FBI. Well, I thought it was MI5 and MI6.
The M5 is a highway that goes to Oxford.
I know, but MI5 is, or MI6, I can't remember which, but anyway, it's a great show. Watch it.
Oh, it sounds good.
It's amazing. It is amazing, and the performances by everybody on that show are just amazing. Yeah, yes, Jason.
You watch F is for Family?
Oh, I love that show.
No.
Put you through that fucking wall.
It's a good show, especially if you were to have kids or something, you know.
I had a job interview today, and we were talking about that in the interview process. And I was telling the guy that was interviewing me, and I'll tell you guys, my father had a variation of that phrase. You know, instead of "I'm going to put you through that fucking wall if you do that again," it was "If you do that again, you and I are going to tangle ass." So you know, I can understand where that show is coming from and where Bill Burr's mind is coming from as well.
With those kind of interview questions, did you get the job?
For all purposes and concerns, I did.
And by the way, Killing Eve, this year's run of Killing Eve,
an Uber driver?
Killing Eve has been nominated for Best Drama at the Golden Globes. So, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wrote it down this time. Let's see. Brian, is that a piece of art behind you, or is that a thing that holds batteries?
What's right in back of you, Brian?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right next to your head.
Right behind you, there's something that either holds batteries or it's an interesting piece of art.
It holds various batteries of various sizes. I bought it on Amazon. They used to sell them at what we call Giant Eagle, your version of Kroger, or somebody's version of Kroger. It's a regional area. It's a regional store chain, but they have them on Amazon now.
These in Ohio too.
There we go.
You're missing two.
Even has a tester.
Does it charge them, or it just holds them?
It holds them, and there's that tester. That black thing you see up there is a tester.
I see.
And why do you choose to put your batteries on a wall?
Yeah, that is a good question.
So I know where the fuck they are.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess so.
Mine are in a cupboard.
They're right there. You can't miss them.
Yeah,
Besides, I'm not one of those fucking. Ooh, it's kind of look chic faggots or whatever the fuck.
Well, that wouldn't take care of all the batteries I buy, because when I buy them at Costco and I get like 40 at a time.
Yeah, I got a lot of these batteries, the double A's. From Amazon.
I use rechargeable.
And by the way, the batteries at Costco, the way they're packaged, there is no way they don't package them so you can kind of dip in and get one. You know, you got to open up the whole box, and then what I do is I take them and unload them into a Ziploc bag.
That's a good idea.
Well, that's why I have this, so that whenever I pull them out of that shit, what Jason is showing us, then I can just grab one and at my convenience.
Yes, but you can't fit 40 of them in there.
I use rechargeable.
40 of them
well, you're a pussy.
I use the E-loops. And these, so I have a charger. I can charge 8 at a time, and because I just got tired of buying batteries.
Well, you can get tired of buying batteries, but I got tired of always trying to charge the fuckers because they didn't hold a charge for very long.
Well, it depends. Yep. The packing material depends.
I'm with you there, Alex.
There's ones that disperse the stuff faster than others. I heard or read an interesting article on different batteries, and there are ones that have a higher charge, but they lose their charge faster, and there's others that, and there's a specific way of knowing which one is which. But they last for a few months, and then you just charge them.
Yeah, but the trouble is that I tried using rechargeables for a while, and I just found them to be fucking annoying. They don't last as long as regular batteries, and then you got to stick them in these chargers, and you sit there and they charge, and it was just.
I would get those lithium batteries, especially. You don't want the battery to go dead on you when you're underwater and you're taking pictures, and you got a strobe. You got two strobes.
I have a good way you could do that, Phil. Just put new, fresh batteries in before you go underwater.
I do, but you know what those lithium batteries cost? It's like 4 of them are $8 or $10.
Yeah, so.
Well, I need
try suddenly getting one of those rechargeables that don't recharge for a long enough amount of time to die on you. What are you gonna do? Plug in a charger underwater?
No, I keep it on the boat. I have a charger on the boat, and this way, in between each dive, I just switch out the batteries.
Don't be a pussy. Use regular batteries.
Yeah, they're recyclable.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that Phil's an environmentalist.
All of a sudden,
No, I'm not. I'm cheap. I got tired of spending $50 every time I dive.
Environmental issues.
At Costco, I get like what is it?
I am.
Jason had some there. You get them at Costco. They're like $15 for like 40 of them.
Yeah.
I had 2 batteries in a piece of equipment. I took them out and I stuck them in my pant pocket and the front pocket. And then all of a sudden, a couple hours later, they felt very hot. And I guess they were touching in one way or another. They were AAAs. 2 of them, and it was just close to having a fire. When I took them out of my pocket, they were so hot I couldn't keep them in my hands. I actually threw them into the dirt.
Were these lithiums?
These were rechargeable E-Loop AAAs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, E-Loop is a Panasonic battery, and that are chargeable.
Boy, the audience is disappearing tonight. I may just turn off the
Why
video.
are you watching it?
Well, I just see it here, and I get.
You're worse than Trump. Trump is saying, "Oh, the ratings. How many? I'm 50%. I'm this. I'm that. You're worse than Trump. Oh, only 30 people watching. God, I need 40 people.
I'm going to show the videos of the horses.
Well, if you want to fill a stadium, have Bernie Sanders speak.
Yeah, that'll fill a stadium, all right.
Well, it did.
Really?
Until he started gaslighting for Hillary.
Yeah.
But before that, stadium.
Oh, why would he be doing that? Because I heard that. I heard that he was actually already said that he's going to run.
Well, I'm talking about 2016.
He's going to try and run in 2020.
Phil, let me talk. When he lost the nomination, to Hillary Clinton in the primary, say what you will about that, but when he lost it, then he started telling his supporters to vote for her, and they caught on. They realized that, well, like I do, he was fucked over. And A, and B, Hillary Clinton is not you, or the version of you that campaigned before you lost, and so they peeled away from him. But when he was campaigning against Hillary, oh yeah, those stadiums were filled.
He reminds me of that guy Dean.
No,
he's a
not
fraud.
at all. Not at all.
And he had so much support from the youth.
That's how he. We visit some friends up in Vermont.
You're talking about Howard Dean.
Yeah,
we're talking. We have some
friends.
We visit these friends every year up in Vermont, and they are very liberal people, very liberal, and they tell me that Bernie Sanders is a fucking asshole.
Really?
That they can't stand him. That he is an absolute fraud.
Oh.
So, and they've dealt with him. They've had business dealings with the guy.
I don't care. I'd take him over Trump any day of the week.
Well, listen, you would take syphilis over Donald Trump for crying out loud.
Anthropomorphic sack of pig shit.
I would, I did vote for Hillary, but I also voted for Bernie in the primaries, and I'd take him over her any day of the week.
Yeah,
I like Bernie.
Yeah,
I don't care if he's a fraud.
Hillary.
As long as he's a fraud for me, that's good.
But
I like Bernie too. I really hope he runs against Trump.
I do. I think he would fucking tear Trump apart.
I think that if he had run against Trump in the last election, Trump would have won.
Nah, I don't.
Absolutely.
I don't think he would have lost by 3,000.
There wasn't only one. There was plenty of different surveys out there that showed that he would have beat him.
When I talk to people from West Virginia, the archetypal hillbilly types who say they liked Bernie Sanders, that tells me, he would have wiped the floor with Trump's fat ass.
I think you're absolutely wrong. I think that Bernie Sanders was a bad idea too. I just don't think the Democrats came up with a good idea this year.
And Jason, just remember all of those surveys that said Hillary was a shoo-in, and there was no way that Trump was going to win. So it's the same.
Sponsored by corporate media outlets that were neoliberal.
They were doing.
I thought she did win.
No, she did win.
She did.
She didn't win the election.
No, wait a minute. Hold on a second. They weren't. Those polls weren't testing for electoral college. They were checking for people. Who will people vote for? And they predicted
there were all of these guys saying that he has no chance of reaching 270. You better believe they were going for the electoral college.
Those were the people who were.
There was this TV show. The guy presses this
hold
button
on a
and
second.
They
were the people who were doing the polling were polling on numbers. They weren't polling on electoral college. Those were the interpretations being made by wonks over at MSNBC and so on, based upon those statistics.
Yes.
Yeah. So the polls were right. I mean, she won that election, if you want to say the popular vote. Yeah, absolutely.
The popular vote does not win that election.
Yeah, I'm not that. I understand that, Phil. But what I'm saying is, what they were polling for was popular vote, not for electoral vote. And in that respect, they were correct.
Yeah, selective memory. Yeah. I'm telling you,
all those
wonks.
It isn't selective memory. She won by 3 million votes in the popular vote.
It was closer to 4 million.
Those were. How many dead people did she win by?
What you're doing is trying to rewrite history.
They were all illegal immigrants. They're all illegal Mexicans.
Especially California.
This is the second time. This is the second time in just a few years that the Republicans have gamed the system by not winning by a popular vote, but winning by the electoral vote. And I think the problem is the Democrats.
That's not a game.
The Democrats never learned. Democrats never learned how to play that game. That's the problem.
They're going to get their chance. Aren't they going to be able to redistrict now that they have the Congress?
Yeah, and they're actually being smart about it, too, and passing state amendments about taking the gerrymandering out of the politicians' hands and putting it into independent people's hands.
By the way, I wish Patrick were calling tonight, because I'd like to know what he thinks of what's going on in Wisconsin.
It's Democratic governor?
No,
he responded. He had an interesting response to.
Well, wait a minute. Let me explain to the audience first, so in case they don't know what we're talking about. In Wisconsin, the what do you call it? The assembly or whatever.
Governor.
No, the assembly.
Well, but the governor is Democratic.
He's the one that
state houses.
Let me
Republican.
finish what I'm saying. He's coming in, and there is a Republican state house right now. I don't know if that's going to change after the procedure. Not going to change. What they did is they voted to lessen the ability of the governor to govern.
Same thing they did in North Carolina in 2016.
They're doing that in Michigan here, too.
Yeah.
Of course.
They want to limit the power of the governor and the attorney general.
They're allowed to, because according to Patrick, the Democrats did the same thing in 2010. These are Patrick's words, and I'm summarizing them. So, Patrick, if you're listening, please call in and chime.
Well, if they did in 2010, they wouldn't be doing it now because it'd already be law.
I'm talking about the Democrats, though, when they were in control. Evidently, the Democrats may have been in control of the Wisconsin state legislature in 2010, and that they did the same thing. And it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's like Crips or Blood shit. That's the part.
And then here in Michigan,
pisses me off.
In Michigan, too, they did a vote. They voted to increase the minimum wage to $12 an hour by 2022, I think. And, $12 an hour for minimum wage, I don't think is that unreasonable.
Well, but what is it by 20? When they say wait a minute, when is this supposed to come into effect?
By 2022.
See, by 2022, that will be unreasonable.
But now the Republicans
it's unreasonable now.
Just now voted to spread that on to 2030.
Of course.
That's fucking ridiculous to sit there and say, because we were, we had the votes actually to put it on the ballot to make it a state amendment. So the Republicans decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to actually vote for it. And then that way, if we vote for it and pass it, it can't go on to the ballot and it can't be an amendment. That way we can change it after the election.
So Jason, you realize that if the minimum wage are tied to the rate of inflation, it would be $20 to $22 an hour?
I don't understand why a 16-year-old kid needs $12 an hour.
Just type it in on Google search.
Well, we're not talking about 16-year-old.
That's who earns minimum wage.
Yes,
Phil,
but also,
maybe they could do something if you're under 18 or you're still in your parents' house. There could be a different wage, and they could do that and should do that because that would encourage teens to get a job and go out there and learn the work environment and work skills. I think that was one of my biggest educations was having a job at McDonald's. I learned so much about the workforce when I was working there. And maybe you should be able to earn a little bit less if you're under 18 and you still are supported by mommy and daddy. But if you're over 18, you should not be able to work a 40-hour.
I had a friend.
I
had a buddy that worked at a place called Jetburger, and I figured, okay, I'll get a job at Jetburger too. And they paid the minimum wage. You know what it was? $1.75.
Yeah, what year?
What year, Phil?
71.
And you're acting like it's just kids who get minimum wage. I got to tell you, there are a lot of adults out there who get minimum wage. There are people who are older people who work as greeters at Walmart that get minimum wage.
They don't do it because they want to. They do it because they have to.
Exactly.
When I was 16 working at McDonald's, I think minimum wage was like $3.75 or $4 an hour.
Wow.
So
yeah,
it really,
the
minimum wage is only $7 an hour now, I think, or maybe $8 an hour. It really hasn't gone up that much as much.
$7.25.
Hello to Ray Renati. What happened to Tony? Did he just go somewhere?
Yeah, he must have gone to his mother's. The picture of his room is
fell over. Or
something. Yeah. It's nice talking to a radiator.
No,
hey, Alex, how's your girlfriend?
How is she? She's slowly getting better by measures. She's getting up and around the house a lot more, although at the expense of her leg at the end of the day hurting. But today we got some new crutches that she ordered, the kind that have the little thing here and you hold on to. It's a much better crutch. And she's getting around, and she's even been able to hobble around without the cane. So, but it's still, after just a short amount of time, her leg starts really hurting, and she, she needs to rest. But as I told her, I said, this is, she thinks she might be able to go back to work next week, towards the end of the week.
It's probably not going to happen.
No, it probably will happen because we're judging how she is right now. And she has a doctor's appointment on Monday, and I think it will be no problem getting her into a cab now and getting her up to the doctor's.
I hope for her sake she's right, but she comes off to me as like my mother. She overestimates her abilities.
But she's been doing her work here from home, and she had to close the books for the end of the month and did it all from here with.
Guess who's back?
Oh, there's Tony. Where were you, Tony? Where did you have to go?
I just gave my mother a pill.
No.
Hopefully she's
cyanide.
It's just like a
final pill.
Final PM.
Yeah.
Final
but
solution.
Anyway, she wanted me to thank everybody for all the nice things they've written, or people in the audience and so on, and how they've been concerned. I know that Jeff called us here at home the other day to inquire as to how it was. Phil's been very nice about it. I've heard from him. And I don't know who else she's heard from. I think she's been talking to Patrick about it, actually. She got some stuff she was talking to Patrick about. And who knows better about this kind of thing than Patrick,
One of those, I was pissed off that I had no shoes, but I met a man who had no feet kind of dynamics.
Yeah.
Did she, was she able to utilize anything because the accident happened while she was doing work?
I mentioned that to her.
Is her workers' comp giving her any? Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to need it,
Well, it's not a matter of needing. They may be able to give you additional things like transportation and other things.
Well, as for transportation, her company is going to pay for Ubers to work and home for a while until she gets better. Yes, Jason.
So, like in Michigan, we have these things. They're called the Michivan. You know, they're basically driving services that take you to the doctor and stuff, and they're usually always handicap accessible. You guys have stuff like that she could just use instead?
I think they have them. I don't think she's going to need them.
Because the last episode I was listening to, you're talking about like if you could hire an ambulance.
No,
to drive
if we
could,
when she was in real pain and when this whole thing occurred and we had to get her to the doctor, yes. Now I think taking a cab is not out of the question. We'll see on Monday. I'm going to go with her to her doctor, and we'll see how easily we get her downtown and back. But there are services called ambulettes, for instance, that do this kind of thing, but they're not cheap. They're pretty expensive. Yes, Brian.
I heard the Uber being mentioned, and dovetailing on that. Did you talk about how New York is making Uber pay their drivers minimum wage? Yeah.
I can't. I don't know that they're doing that. I do know.
Are they going to classify them as employees?
Evidently, they'll have to if that's what they're doing.
Well, all I know is what they're doing is they've limited the amount of Ubers now in Manhattan.
Which is
well, what happens is a guy goes out, he gets himself a yellow cab, he pays I heard the latest
medallion system,
about $200,000 for a medallion. They had one.
That's only because Cohen was involved.
Well, if this guy who drives the yellow cab,
Phil, they
drove it for like 15 years. He paid $1 million for it back then.
They were $1 million back then, Phil. And that had nothing to do with Cohen. But medallions are worth about $200,000. So a guy pays $200,000 for a medallion, and then he gets like undercut by a fucking Uber. Some guy with his car who puts a little sign on it and says, "I'll pick you up now."
In the early '60s, like maybe 1961, I remember visiting a relative. They said he was an uncle, but he had a cab. He owned a cab, and in like 1961. I remember the conversation was $27,000 for the medallion.
Yeah, but they went up at one point to
and that's the thing too, though, is when these people take these or buy these medallions and the value of them goes down, the loan that they took out to buy the medallion doesn't go down. They still have to pay back the $200,000, even though it's only worth $80,000.
I had a buddy that had a seat on the stock exchange in San Francisco, and you would buy that seat, and they would go up and down in value, and because he was in a pit and he traded his own stuff.
Well, I talked to a cab driver the other day, and he literally rents his medallion that's on his cab for $1,000 a week.
Wow.
Okay.
Can they generate that much
wait
money?
a minute. And then he says, and then I've got the lease on my car.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I said, so do you make money? He says, some weeks, yes. Other weeks, no. I said, how's this week been? He said, terrible. I mean, it's not exactly a business you want to do. If you're probably in better shape in a lot of ways if you become one of these green cars we have now. For years, we used to have the black cars, and God bless the black cars, because they came up here to Harlem when the yellow cabs wouldn't come to Harlem, and if they did, they sped right through it. Okay. Well, finally, they decided to somehow take the black cars, the gypsy cabs as they were called, and bring them into the system. And they did it by making them green cars. And what they can do is they can only go above 110th Street on the east side and 86th, I think, on the east side and 110th on the west. And they can't pick up anybody below that. They can go below it to, like, if I want to take one downtown, but then they have to come back to pick somebody up. They can also work any of the other boroughs. So that's added people who now are able to have some kind of vehicle for rent
but
that
you're able
can
to
make a decent little profit for them.
you're able to flag those down, right? I don't think you're supposed to be able to flag down a Uber.
No, you can't flag down an Uber. No.
Yeah.
No, they have to. But you can. All you got to do is tap into your iPhone and see where there's one nearby, and go come pick me up. And by the time I'm at the front door, there will be an Uber. I've never taken an Uber, to be honest with you.
I drove Uber and Lyft all day today.
Really? I shared an Uber when I was in Tennessee. I don't have the app, but the girl I shared the Uber with, she did, and we went to the conference center. It was a nice experience. The person was nice. The car was clean.
Let me ask Ray this. You say you were Uber and Lyft today. How do you tell which one you are at any given time?
Oh, well, if they have Lyft had a promotion going this morning. If I did 3 in a row, they gave you a bonus. So I started with Lyft. Lyft pays more. They don't take as much out, so I try to do Lyft as much as I can. Mm-hmm. And then when that promotion ended, like around 9 o'clock, I switched over to Uber. And then when it gets slow, I put both of them on at the same time. And when I get a ride on one of them, I quickly turn the other one off, so that I don't have to cancel something.
Do you have that mustache thing in your car that lights up?
No, they don't have that anymore. The pink mustache.
Yeah.
What? No, what's this?
Lyft.
Lyft used to have a pink fuzzy mustache. It was about 4 feet long that you'd put on your bumper.
It's a status.
No, there was also something that was in your window.
Oh yeah, I used to have that.
Lit up.
Yeah, I used to have that, but now they have a regular looking lit up thing that's not so goofy looking. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't make much sense to me.
I made $30 an hour. Huh? I try to do it smart. I got little tricks I do, but it's not good.
Is that profit?
Well, no, that's gross. But then the thing is, I got my car for free, so I don't. I inherited it, so my only expense really is gas, and the car's a diesel. I've never had to do any major service on the thing other than put a battery and new tires in it.
I thought you were selling that back to VW.
I am on December 15th for $27,000.
What do you mean selling it back? Is that a car that they want back?
No, they got a lawsuit. They got not a lawsuit. They got what was it, Phil? They got
they lied about their fuel standards and the testing for emissions, and
during a smog check.
Yeah, so
they lied and they lost billions of dollars. Volkswagen, because the Audis, some of the Audis, the Jettas, and the Passats since 1991 or something, they've been as soon as you stick the little thing in the muffler, it knows that you're doing a smog check and it gives a false reading.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have one of those cars. So I kept it for 2 years. I'm turning in at the last minute because I wanted to use it as much as I could, and they have to pay me $26,400, and I paid zero for the car.
Really?
Yeah.
That's okay.
So what are you going to do for a car for
a week?
What are you going to take? What are you going to use for a car?
My son has a car that I'm paying for that he does not use, so I'm going to start using that car.
So you're going to start using that car? Okay. Yeah, and so $30 a day. You say you make
$30 an hour.
An hour. So yeah.
It turns out to be 28. I mean, it's not great, but when I don't have anything else going on, it's better than making nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex, when you were doing radio programs and you were making the big bucks, did you ever break it down to how much you were making per hour?
Yeah. I think at one point I thought about it. Yeah. I'm trying.
Did you break it down by the minute?
When I was in sales at a software company,
well, go figure it out. I was making. I think at my height in San Francisco, $350,000 a year. So you figure out how much that is an hour.
You were on for 4 hours.
That's about $300
a day.
You get lunch
5 days a week.
Yeah.
You get a full lunch.
I mean, that was with everything that I made off of that show, of doing that show. I think I seem to remember.
I think that's about $200 an hour.
It was, huh?
I think that's about $200 an hour.
Yeah, but that was when 350 was 350.
Oh, and you also weren't working 8 hours.
No,
he worked 4.
He only worked 4 hours.
Oh, so that's like $400 an hour.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's about what I figured it out once to be. Yeah.
How many spots were on those shows an hour? 6?
No, there were at one point. What happened was the ratings started.
Yes, I have a follow-up on that.
The ratings started to falter, and I couldn't.
$336 an hour.
Okay, I was working. I was trying to figure out what was the question you just asked me.
Oh,
see, that's how punchy I am.
Oh, let's see. What the hell was it?
Now you can't remember the question.
Now I forget.
Anybody remember what the question was? No.
How much were you making an hour?
Well, how much was I making an hour? But then there was something about the number of commercials.
The advertising.
Okay, no, the advertising.
How many spots? An hour.
I'll tell you, and the ratings started going down. And when I first started that show, I remembered the amount of commercials at about 12 minutes worth an hour.
Okay, so that's
wait a minute. Hold
24?
on. Don't start adding it up yet.
All right.
The show became very, very popular, and I never paid attention to how many commercials we had every hour because they were always run from another room. Okay, I would go to the break, and somebody else would play them. And one day I was noticing that it was taking an awfully long time to get back to me.
Yeah.
And I said, "How many commercials are we running an hour now?" And the guy came back and said, 21 minutes.
Wow.
And that's why the ratings started going down, because people got less programming, and they would go away during the commercial breaks and sometimes forget to come back.
Now, most of them aren't 60 seconds, are they?
Usually about 30 seconds.
30. So you maybe had 42 commercials.
They made a fucking fortune off of me.
And what was the rate for the commercial? I'm just trying to get at.
I can't
begin.
Paying you
$330 an hour.
I can't begin to tell you, okay?
Yeah.
Because it varied so much over the years that I was there, where the rate got higher and higher and higher. What you do is, if you've got a popular radio program, you simply charge what the traffic will bear. And if you've got a very popular show and everybody wants to be on it, you keep selling it at a higher and higher price until you see that people aren't buying it as fast. So
I remember in your heyday at Camel, you had a 6 share. And when the book would come out, it was a celebratory thing, because you had a big share.
I never
it
had.
might even been higher than 6.
I never had a 6. No, I had. I think 4.5 was the highest I got it.
Really? Okay, I thought it was a 6 share.
But, but
18 to 35, you had the 6.
Yeah, but what happens is that, like, for instance, when I say $350,000 a year, a great deal of that was in commercial revenue that I got money for, because they were going out and selling me doing live pitches. And in one of my contracts, we made a deal where every time I did a live pitch, I got $50. And some mornings,
you have the potential of 42 pitches an hour.
No. They did a maximum of 2 live reads an hour. And some mornings I could make $400 just off the advertising, so that at the end of the year that amounted to a nice amount of money. Yeah. But that was then and this is now. Okay, so now I couldn't get that kind of money. Even if somebody said, "Alex, we want you to come do a radio show for us," they'd try and get away as cheaply as possible.
Yeah. Are you saying Gabnet's being cheap?
Hey, listen,
he makes double that on Gabnet.
Gabnet bucks are awesome, though. Yeah, they're better than Bitcoin.
Now they are.
Well, I can't begin to tell you the number of people who are in the radio business right now, and they don't get a salary at all. or if they do, it is so low, it's ridiculous. You know, so I mean, the question is it worth doing? Probably not. Do I want to do it? I would love to do it. But, you know, when you look at what I'm going to make, I mean, I go do Walter's show, you know, and I don't get paid anything, but I don't feel bad about it because he ain't making money either. You know, so
KGO fired all these guys who were making a ton of money, and now they have these people on there who are pretty good, but they hardly pay them a damn thing.
By the way, you may not have listened to it lately, but from what I understand, KGO doesn't have any local programs anymore.
They do on the weekend. They have like Maureen Langham, the comic, and a couple other people on the weekends. But she hardly makes any money. I know she does it for almost nothing.
The guy that you had a beef with, I guess, just Jack Swanson, is it?
Yeah.
Just took over KGO again. He's back. So
no, he's gone already.
He's gone already?
Yeah, he's gone already.
Wow.
Yeah. He's gone already. They moved somebody else in now as program director, and there are no, according to Walter, there are no local programs on KGO.
And it's too bad. I almost had you there.
Their morning show comes out of Sacramento.
Yeah, and they play it twice a day. They play it in the morning, and they play it at night, the same guy.
Yeah.
You mean Armstrong and Getty?
Yeah.
No, it's
Armstrong and Getty.
No, they're in the morning.
Armstrong and Getty are doing their mornings, and they're coming out of Sacramento.
No, I mean the guy after Armstrong and Getty. There's a guy like after Armstrong and Getty that he does, and then
it's obviously, but it's syndicated. They're all syndicated.
Yeah.
And the one great thing about KGO years ago was it was one of the few stations left in San Francisco that was all original programming 24/7.
It was great.
Yeah. Well, you know, they got ripped apart when this guy I knew, Kevin Matheny, became the program director there. Yeah. And I almost I was putting him together with Alex because he had grown up, and at WMCA his father was the program director.
Carol Matheny.
And so what ended up happening was he says, "Oh, I knew Alex. I used to see him when I was a little kid in the hallway." He says, "I love that guy." And I said, "Well, you know," so they almost got together, and then he dropped dead.
He dropped dead. Yeah, another one of my chances to get work. The guy drops dead. Don't ever have anything to do with me, okay, if you're in the business. Yes, Kevin. Yes, Brian.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, and I've been wondering this for quite some time now because it hasn't happened yet, at least to the extent that I want it to. But how much more competitive would talk radio be when or if online services like YouTube and online streaming services become more mainstream and streamlined with the creature comforts available to you the way that satellite and AM and FM radio are to you when they
I don't get what you're saying.
When you're able to access online,
forget online is worse.
Content.
Online is worse than terrestrial. I mean, maybe you weren't here last night when I told everybody the current number of podcasts on iTunes is. Are you ready? 609 million.
Oh, shit.
Pre-recorded.
Excuse me, 609,000. Excuse me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You know, the cars now are coming out, they're Wi-Fi accessible.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. 609,000. There's no way you're going to make money out of the fucking internet.
No.
Not unless you're that girl who gets 1 million hits for giving makeup tips. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What about that girl that was in Costa Rica last week? I guess she's got a ton of Instagram followers, and she rented an Airbnb and turned up dead. They found her body. Are you familiar with that one?
I have no idea.
She'd
what
make a lot of money.
Person killed a white American.
Well, wait a minute. Did she?
She wasn't white. I think
did she have a podcast?
Spanish.
Did she have a podcast?
She was an Instagram.
Meme.
Well, the way I look at it, it's one less person who's competition. Anyway, You know, now if I can
looks at this, another brown person killed an American.
Now if I can only get 609,000 other people to do the same thing, I have a chance of making it here. No, I wondered why it was harder to get an audience doing a podcast than it was, say, 5-6 years ago. You know,
hey, Alex, Jack says that he might want to retire to Costa Rica, so there might be another less one.
Really?
He's not a good-looking Instagram model.
Hey, he might be to somebody.
Yeah. Well, you know, but
blind people
pretty limited.
It's just that, you know, when you think about the internet as being this wonderful thing, you know, it really isn't. The only thing it's good for are the people like Apple, like Yahoo, like Google, who literally are the platform for these things. Those are the people making the money. I use
the internet. I use the cloud for my instead of a server. Now my programs are in the cloud and they're hosted over the internet.
You know, I really hate that term, the cloud, and I'll tell you why. Because there ain't no fucking cloud. All right, it's a server. Down, it's a server somewhere. It's not a cloud. It's not hovering over the earth.
Server. It's multiple servers.
Yeah, but it's not the server. It's not my server, which every 5 years needs to get replaced.
Well, no, I mean I use a server for this thing, but I don't ever say I'm sending it up to the cloud. I'm sending it to the server. But they've come up with this.
We're there in the future. You won't have to buy any more computers. All you really have is a monitor.
Terminal.
Yeah.
Dumb terminal. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about one thing about Kevin Matheny. Can you imagine if you got the job at KGO, you came out, and 2 weeks later the guy dies?
Well, the way I look at it, at least I would have the job.
Yeah.
It'd be up to the next guy to fire me. You know.
Yeah. Well, it looked like they cleaned house every time a new guy comes in. They clean house.
All these places clean house because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. You know, I wrote on one professional site recently when they talked about that Hubbard Broadcasting was letting go of I don't know how many thousands of people or whatever. And I said, you know, these things are going to keep going on until this industry learns that it has to change the way they do business. They have to come up with, just like when TV came in, radio changed. Radio started playing music. Radio started doing talk shows. But now they've got the internet, and they don't serve that function well. And they have to find a new place to position themselves to be successful. And they're not doing it. They're still trying the same old shit, hoping it's going to work.
Porn. They should do porn.
Porn, yeah.
Radio porn.
You know, I asked my friend Barry if there was something he could do for you, and you know, with your format, and he said, and he programs 5 stations, and so I said, you know, what's the story? He says nobody wants anything new in this business.
And that's the reason why it's going to continue to die.
Right,
is because nobody wants something new, and that's Jeff's left early.
I think he went in the other room.
Yeah. That's where I say if you want to get back into radio, you need to practice. Thank you for listening to WWJ, where we produce weather and traffic on the 8s.
Exactly. But, you know, I mean, there is no radio business out there. The only people who think there's a radio business out there are the people who own the radio stations and don't want to give up the ghost. You know?
Yeah, Jason, my friend Barry used to program W4 in your area.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it's impossible. Anyway, hey, listen, that's it. We've run out of time tonight. Gosh, the show's gone by fast, and I'm still awake, and so are you guys. So,
calling the Jack Show.
In that case, we're ahead of the game when it comes to broadcasting. Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate you calling whenever you can. Jeff, love having you here. Brian, great having you here. Phil, terrific. You know, we didn't even get mad at you tonight because we didn't get it. I think we mentioned Trump once in the whole show. Thanks to Tony Magno, and of course, thanks to Ray Renati. All of you guys are terrific. And what I'd like you to do is give a big wave goodbye to everybody out there. See you later, guys. That's our citizens panel for tonight. Those are the people who make this program what it is. I just simply sit here and act as a ringmaster for what goes on. There'll be another ringmaster up here next. His name is Jack Bishop. He does a show called The Intersection. Then tomorrow night at 9:30, Damian Chaplin will be here with the Exchange. And then at 10 o'clock, I'll be back again. Same time, same station in life. And in the meantime, if you see her, you know what to do. Tell her I love her, okay? Bye-bye.